Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. I'm so glad that you are here, as we are every single day, where we give it to you straight. We give you the news in a way that respects your intelligence. It doesn't insult you. So make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you hit the like so folks know that we are here. We're here every day live at 5 o'clock to bring you the news in the way that the corporate media, traditional media, legacy media, whatever it is that they won't do and that they're not doing. Okay, we're doing it in a way where we have no corporate influence. So thank you for supporting us. The membership link is at the top of the chat. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It is free, and we appreciate you joining us. So hit the thumbs up. Thanks for joining us live on YouTube. That's where the big show is. Thanks for joining us on TikTok. Thanks for joining us on Instagram and Facebook. And soon we'll have another platform that you will be able to join us on. We'll tell you about that as it gets closer, as it nears. So again, thank you. Okay, so I'm here with you this evening and out of concern. And I don't think that we can talk enough about this. There are two things that there are three things that I'm really concerned about. I'm concerned about a lot, but at the top of the list, number one is free speech, in peril right now. Number two is, well, it's the First Amendment, really. It's freedom of speech, freedom of the press. I have said I believe that we are in a dictatorship right now, and we are in a recession. They won't tell you that. The conservatives, the MAGA folks get mad when I say that. So this whole idea that I've been really going on about, and that I'm going to, sorry, I don't know why it does that, and that I'm going to discuss, I've been discussing a lot, is this sort of fast tracking of white South African farmers into this country, what that means for farmers in general, and especially for Black farmers, and the history of racism with farming. That is problematic. And of course, the economy. First Amendment, immigration, the economy, right? Those are big, big, big deals. And we're going to discuss them in a way that you won't hear it discussed. I was going over this show, guys, listening to the sound bites and the things that we want to bring to you. And some of it is just fucking infuriating. Like, they don't care. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care. They don't care. They just think that you work for them. They are the bosses. They can do whatever they want. They're playing right in our faces. And they don't care. They do not really care about us at all. And it should be concerning to you. Our lawmakers now have very limited, the folks who are at least trying to keep our freedom, our democracy intact, and our First Amendment rights, they have very limited levers at their control, at their hands to be able to fight this. They're trying. They may not be doing it in the best way that they know how, but at least they're trying. But I don't know where we go from here. They only care about themselves, as Beth Baer. Yes. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Thanks for joining. I got to read this, and I got to tell you again, not everything is going to be sexy and outrageous. And I always tell you, I'm going to give you what I think you need to know, and you're going to hear a lot today. So buckle in. Again, hit that thumbs up and come join us on this journey on Lemon Live at 5 today. Will you? Okay. Can I hear from you guys in the comments? Can I get a witness? Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. We need everyone to talk about Mahmoud Khalil, because Mahmoud Khalil is all of us right now. We don't know. There's no transparency around it. They're saying two different things, talking out of both sides of their neck, or as the old folks used to say, they're talking out of both sides of their ass, is what they're doing. And you know a lie when you see one, right? You know when someone's lying to you. You know when someone's trying to pull the wool over. You know when someone's pulling a fast one. And for those of you who are out there, for those of you who have been a part of the underserved communities who have been discriminated against, who have been oppressed, who have had their rights taken away, who have had run-ins with police, and you were treated differently than maybe the person sitting next to you. For those of you who have been persecuted before, for those of you who have been in fear of your life because someone thought that they had authority over you that they don't really have, but they have power at their control. And that when someone has that kind of power over you, that is a superpower that they have. It is a superpower. And I don't mean like, Marvel, that kind of thing. I mean a superpower to be able to change the trajectory of your life and your freedom. People who can affect your rights and your freedom, and whether you can walk around, and whether your family knows where you are, whether the Constitution applies to you. I want you guys to hear me and hear me clearly, okay? This broadcast is not going to be, this stream is not going to be for the faint of heart. This is not going to be for the people who want to come and just be, okay, we want something happy. This should be problematic, concerning. It is trouble for every single one of us. We may have some MAGA folks here. We have some people here who don't agree with it, whatever I say. We have people in the chat who disagree with me. We have people, some of them, they are trolls. We have some of them, they think differently. You may feel differently about Israel than I feel. You may feel differently about Palestine or Gaza than I feel. You may feel differently about Black Lives Matter than I feel. You may be a staunch MAGA supporter. I don't agree with anything pretty much from MAGA. Nothing. Because I don't believe in bigotry. I don't believe in racism. I don't believe in hypocrisy. I don't believe in flouting the Constitution. I don't believe that only certain people have rights and privileges in this country. I don't believe that the history of America should be stripped from our schools. That means Black history, because they make certain people feel bad. I learned history in school and about slavery. It made me feel bad. But boo-hoo, that is the real deal in this country. I don't believe any of that stuff that in MAGA. That's why I always say MAGA is built on a lie. I don't believe that someone should be making the first Black president of the United States show his birth certificate because you don't believe he should be there. That was built on a lie. MAGA is built on that. I don't believe that you should be calling for the death penalty for people who are exonerated. That's racist. MAGA was built on that. I don't believe that we have the right in this country to overthrow and overturn elections. I don't believe that we have the right in this country to break into the Capitol. If you break the law, yes. So I don't believe any of those things from MAGA. MAGA was built on all of those lies. But as it relates to freedom of speech, if someone who is part of the MAGA party wants to exercise their right to freedom of expression, to civil disobedience. I didn't say an insurrection. But if you want to exercise that right, then I am fully behind you, because that is your First Amendment right. Do you hear me loudly and clearly? Or as we say, you hear me loud and clear? Am I speaking loud and clear? I don't agree with anything, any of the shit that you believe in, because it's built on a fucking lie. It's built on racism. It's built on bigotry. It's built on sexism. It's built on misogyny. It's built on homophobia. It's built on white nationalism. It's built on just things that are just completely un-American and unpatriotic. I don't believe in it, but I believe in your First Amendment right. I believe that you have the right to express certain things without going to jail unless you break the law. Having said that, we need to talk about Mahmoud Khalil. Could this be the free speech case of the century? Because you know things start small and it may not catch on. I believe that this is a fire and it is growing, okay? Could the very foundation of American free speech be at stake here? I think it could. Today, a federal judge in New York heard arguments regarding the arrest and the detention of the young man, a legal permanent resident and recent Columbia graduate who played a major role in anti-war protests at a university. Now, I live near these universities in New York. I saw the chaos firsthand. I witnessed it. I was there. So I didn't like some of it. I didn't agree with some of it. But remember I said, I don't know if you guys remember, I said this. Now, you tell me if I'm lying. For those of you who have been around, who've been here since the very beginning, for those of you who were here when these protests were going on, I said, I believe that young people and college students should be given wide latitude to express themselves because they are college students. They are learning. They're pushing the boundaries of the First Amendment. They're learning about protests. They are developing their feelings and their their perspective on things. Do you guys remember me saying that? I think that these students should be given wide latitude. You remember Ebony Noel? Thank you. Am I lying? I do recall that says August to winter. Absolutely. So I said given wide latitude. A lot of people were really, really, really upset. I walked onto some of these campuses and they're like, oh, there's Don Lemon. This is so corporate media, CNN. And then some people were like, no, he's on our side now. No. And then they were mad at me because they thought like I was the enemy. I was some mole, like going, who's the mole? Oh, here's the mole coming to talk. Because I said, look, I don't think y'all should be, setting libraries or breaking windows, setting things on fire, or breaking windows. I don't like that. They got mad at me about that. And then I said, well, not everybody who's out there protesting in support of Gaza or Palestine, that doesn't make them anti-Israel. They support the lives of innocent people. That is okay. That's fine. That doesn't mean that they have ties to Hamas because they believe that. I don't like Jewish kids being blocked from classes or people who are being anti-Semitic. I spoke out against that. You don't have to be entrenched on one side or the other just because you may not agree with something a pro-Palestinian person is saying. That doesn't make you anti-Palestine or anti-Gaza if you're Jewish, and vice versa. People have a hard time wrapping their heads around that. And I also said that students, sometimes the parents and the people who are maybe sometimes coddling these kids, people need to learn sometimes to be uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable a lot, especially as a Black kid growing up in the South. And some of the things I heard, some of the things that happened to me at LSU, some of the racist things that happened to me, why I left Louisiana and left LSU. It was not comfortable. But I stuck it out. I didn't stick it out because I left because I knew that I could not become the person that I wanted to come if I had stayed there in that environment. So I said, okay, this is it for LSU. When my journalism teacher told me I would never make it as a journalist, I was like, okay. And then I would look around and the people who did not look like me, who did not have my hue, who were not as good as me on camera, who could not write as well as me, who could not perform as well as me, he was yucking it up with them. You're going to be great. I wish it had DEI back. I'd be like, what kind of DEI shit is that? So I said, you know what? So I packed up the truck and I moved to Beverly Hills, that is. I moved to New York. I moved to New York, the place where these protests happened. NYU, Columbia. And this is where that young man was protesting. Here in New York City at Columbia University, a graduate student who played a major role in the anti-war protests at the university. His lawyers want him to be released from Louisiana. Another connection, Louisiana, my home state, a Louisiana detention center, returned to New York for his immigration proceedings. Meanwhile, the Trump administration argued that the case should not be moved. Their argument is not very good, and they know it. I just want you from this morning, get me that Senator Kennedy, John Kennedy soundbite. They know their argument is not good in the court. They're going to rely on a Supreme Court that, that Donald Trump has wrapped around his finger. U.S. District Judge Jesse M. Furman did not immediately make a decision and asked lawyers for both sides to submit a joint letter on Friday that will detail further plans for arguments in the detention case. Attorney Ramzi Kasim argued in court that Khalil was targeted for his advocacy for Palestinian rights. In addition to having their client be 1,000 miles away in Louisiana, any communication with Khalil thus far has been monitored by the government. Is that what we're doing now? It impedes our ability to defend him, Kasim said. In response, Furman and Khalil and his attorneys are entitled to one privilege call today and another tomorrow, meaning he will remain detained in Louisiana for now. Kasim said they plan to quickly file an amendment petition for the court later this week, given the grave constitutional consequences. He added that Khalil has no past criminal convictions. What happened to Mahmoud Khalil is nothing short of extraordinary and shocking and outrageous, is nothing short of extraordinary and shocking and outrageous, Kasim said during a news conference after the hearing. Every day that Mahmoud spends in detention in Louisiana is a day too long. Trump and his administration have not provided evidence of the allegations against Khalil. A lawyer for Khalil, Sama Sisay, rejected the Trump administration's claim, saying that there is no evidence that his client provided support of any kind to a terrorist organization. Now, this is what I have to say about that. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right camera. This is what I have to say about that. Where's the evidence? Why haven't they said that they have formally charged him with anything? Why the contradiction? Why are they monitoring him? If they already have evidence, are they trying to come up with evidence? Is that what they're trying to do? So let's go through this. And while we do this, if you're on TikTok, make sure you hit the heart, smash the screen so people become aware, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear what you guys in the chat have to say. Hit the thumbs up, okay? Make sure you subscribe. Now, if you guys are going to subscribe, don't make me turn this into a subscription-only show, because I'll do it if you guys don't subscribe, okay? So hit that thumbs up so it's the algorithm, more people become aware. Let me just show you what there are two. When I say they're talking out of both sides of their ass, let's put this up. I think it's a tweet or it's a full screen, a graphic of, there it is. So this is from C-SPAN and one is from Ken Klippenstein, okay? So Marco Rubio is saying on the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, this is not about free speech. And then Tom Homan, who is the acting director, or what are they calling it? The border czar. Free speech has limitations. So one is saying that it is about free speech, and the other is saying this is not about free speech. So what is it, y'all? Pick one. Which one is it? Is it not about free speech? Or is it about free speech? Do you not know what you're talking about because you don't have the evidence, because you detained someone on false pretenses? Andy, this is working, right? Sometimes I have to check.
Yep.
It's on. Okay, this one, this mic right here.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, because you have possibly detained someone under false pretenses because, we weren't sure because you did not give any evidence. And right now, not only have you not given evidence, you are contradicting yourself. Rubio is contradicting Homan. Homan is contradicting Rubio. Okay, thank you, Julie. I'm glad you guys can hear me. Bingo! False pretenses, says Tammy Starling. Thank you very much. First, this is a little bit longer. Let's hear from Marco. Let's see if you guys can make hide or hair of it, that you can make some sense of this. Let's listen. It's a little bit long, okay? Let's listen to Marco Rubio, and then we'll hear from Tom Homan. Marco Rubio first. Here it is.
Come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country.
Started from the beginning.
Visitor's visa. When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country as on a visitor's visa, okay? You are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
Okay, so there's so much bullshit in there. It sounds good, right? So if I were to tell you that you are part of an organization that I believe in, part of an organization that believed in blood sacrifice, that you believed in stoning people, that you believed in the subjugation of women, that you believed in the sacrificing of children. Oh, y'all don't hear me. Do you guys get where I'm going? If I told you this, that I believed in all of those things, if I told you that, what would you say? What would you think? Anybody picking up where I'm going? That you believed in sacrificing children, that you believed in blood oaths and loss, all those things. That you believed in subjugating women, that you believed that that in slavery, if you believed in all of those things, right? If you believed in, as I said, like just sacrificing all these things, you know what that would mean? That would mean that you are a Christian. Anybody in here read the Bible? Don't get me started. Anybody here? Thank you very much, John McCann. Sounds like the God of the Bible. Sounds like the God of the Bible. It sounds like Christianity. And you know how I know that? Because I just wrote about it. Came out in September. If I told you about all those things, what does that mean? That means that I am a Christian because my religion talks about all of that. My religion discusses all of that. And at one time, my religion was party to that. Documented in the Bible that we go to church every Sunday and we read from and we talk about all of those things. That's the Old Testament, but that's at one point, the Old Testament talked about that, Melissa Dunmore. I'm not saying that you have to believe in it, but hey, look. And those questions that Marco Rubio, I grew up Catholic, not practicing, but I understand 100%, says Katie Couric. Thank you. So Marco Rubio's asking questions that people don't ask when they are applying for these things. There are many people in this country who I'm sure believe in some of the things that Marco Rubio is talking about, but they're not kicking them out of the country. They're not asking them those questions when they come to the country. So that is a red herring. If we knew that, well, if I knew that you were a bigot and a homophobe, or if I knew that you were going to, go to the Capitol and break into it, then, sir, I might not have let you into Washington, D.C. I might not let you near the Capitol grounds, but that is besides the point, Marco Rubio. Now, that's what he's saying. He's saying this is not about free speech. I am just saying, do you believe in the person that was crucified, died, and buried? That's what Christians did. They crucified, they died, and someone crucified, died, and then was buried. This is Tom Homan contradicting Marco Rubio.
Free speech has limitations, but when you go to a college campus, you incite protesting and locking down and taking over buildings and damaging property and handing out leaflets for Hamas, who is a terrorist organization. Coming to this country either on a visa or becoming a resident alien is a great privilege, but there are rules associated with that.
Being a citizen of this country is also obviously a great privilege. I don't disagree with that. It is a great privilege, I believe, to be an American citizen. A great, great privilege. And what does that mean? That means that you should not take your ass to the Capitol and desecrate it. Those people didn't get kicked out of the country. And guess what? Those people were exonerated or pardoned. Clemency for some. That means it was taken off their permanent record. You said that that was a form of protest that got out of hand. That's what John Kennedy in Louisiana said about it originally. He said, I don't agree with some of the pardons, but that was just, they shouldn't have been there in the first place because it was a protest that got out of hand. Well, is Khalil a protester that got out of hand, perhaps? Now, they know that they have a very bad probability here that they probably won't win in court. You never know what the judge is going to do and what's going to happen, but they know it. John Kennedy knows it. They're counting on this going to the Supreme Court. They're trying to wait it out because they have no charges against this man. At this point, I have not heard. Now, if they could bring back and say, look, this is the evidence that he has ties to Hamas and that he was, colluding or working with behind the scenes. Okay, then, you'll hear Don Lemon tomorrow go, okay, they brought the receipts, but so far, no receipts. There are no receipts so far. This is what John Kennedy said last night.
Joining me now is Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. Senator, the Trump administration. Are they right on this, or is this just a purist free speech play, and this man deserves his free speech rights wherever they take us?
They're right. The ACLU is defending Mr. Khalil. They say this is a freedom of speech case. I support freedom of speech. How else would we know who the idiots are without freedom of speech? This case is not about freedom of speech. It's about civilized behavior. It's about national security. It's about terrorism. Mr. Khalil is not an American citizen. He's here with a green card. By word and deed, at Columbia, he's shown that he supports Hamas. That's a violation of the Immigration and Naturalization Act.
Pause,
says
please.
You can be deported.
Where is the evidence? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? He is a naturalized citizen. He is a permanent resident with a green card. Where is the evidence? Let's just say, honestly, just say, I don't like it. What if he did believe in Hamas? I want to know, is that a reason? Because you don't like that he may believe in some of that? I think it's, look, I think Hamas is awful. It's a terrorist group or organization. But if you're not working with them, there are people in this country who believe in the KKK, which is a terrorist organization. Does that mean that we are going to jail them just because they believe in it and they have not acted upon that stuff? Or they believe it and they discriminate against people in their lives, but they don't? Do you know what I'm saying? Because there would be a lot of people in this country who are arrested for horrible beliefs, even for people who believe in terrorists, because the KKK is a terrorist organization. And many believe that these neo-Nazi groups are the same and people believe in them. We put them on TV in this country. Some of us interview them for podcasts. I'm looking at you, Gavin. I'm just saying. I want you to listen to this because Jim Himes is on with my friend Mehdi Hassan to discuss what he says is fascism of Khalil's arrest. Okay? It's long, but I think it's important for you to listen. Here it is.
Sunday, Mahmoud Khalil, Palestinian grad student at Columbia, lawful permanent resident, green card holder, married to a US citizen, 8 months pregnant, has armed federal agents turn up at his home, ICE agents, who claim his student visa is revoked. He says, I have a green card. They say, well, that's revoked as well. They take him, detain him, disappear him. We don't know on what charges. The president comes out, posts a post saying he's pro-terrorist, anti-American, very McCarthyite phrase. Not sure there's a law against being anti-American. Says there will be more such arrests coming. You have legal immigrants in this country, not just undocumented immigrants, now living in fear. And we know that if you start with green card holders, there's no reason they won't continue to citizens.
New citizens, that's right.
Naturalized citizens, people we've been talking about. Is this what fascism looks like?
Yes.
Yes, frankly.
The answer is yes.
I mean, again, I'm not, I want to be careful about how I talk about this. Fascism is a lot of things, but this is an element of totalitarianism, of fascism. And it's completely un-American and McCarthyite. And so if we continue the conversation that we've been having, what do we do? And I think you'll find earlier today I put up a tweet about this. Lots of other members have spoken out, raising hell. We'll all be doing social media stuff to make this case, which is that there is no law against having an unpopular opinion. In fact, in this country, we used to cherish the standing that you had to articulate an
unpopular opinion. There is no law, what I've been trying to tell you guys, against having an unpopular opinion. Someone just, I saw, I'm not sure who it was, whoever it was, in the TikTok said, why don't you ask the Jewish students on the campus about how they felt? I did. And I stand in the same thing. I just told you what I said. I don't like some of these views, but they are not illegal. and you're on a college campus, hear me very clearly. If you, just in case you joined, you walked into church late because your alarm didn't go off, or you walked into class late.
All right, stand by, Lemon Nation. Don froze for 1
Here we
second,
go.
but we'll get him back.
Every single day at this time, why do we have connectivity issues?
I think Starlink is attacking us.
Does someone hate us? Like, what on earth is going on here?
I don't know. It's been this whole week.
It's been this whole week. So this is not about having unpopular opinions. So why don't you, I would say the same thing that I'm saying to the Jewish students. I know what happened with the Jewish students. I know what happened with the Jewish students. I was out there and I asked them how they felt. And I said, students should be given a wide berth because they are young people and they are, they're forming their opinions about things. I stand by that. And I also think that in the growing up process and the maturing process, people have to sometimes become used to being uncomfortable. Not that I like it, but it is the truth. Not that I want anybody discriminated against. Not that I want anybody blocking anybody from going to class. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Is Dave on the line?
No, we don't have him.
Not yet. I'm trying to see if he can get to somewhere where he can sign on.
Okay. We're going to get someone to talk to us about the constitutionality of this, okay? Who's going to be able to teach us. In the meantime, let's continue on with Mehdi and Chris Himes.
Popular opinion. So
Jim
we'll be
Himes,
telling that
excuse
case. Will we be passing a law in the House of Representatives? I'm sorry to say we will not.
Well, I've seen that 14 Democrats have signed a letter saying he should be immediately released.
Right.
Your name's not on that, but I assume you support the sentiment.
It will be.
You support the sentiment that he should be released unless he's charged, convicted, and then had a green card removed via a formal process, which exists.
I will sign every letter. I will make every speech. But remember the first thing I said here, which is that the American people chose to disarm us, to take away our tools. I'm not blaming the American people, but
one of the reasons.
I was just going to say, the place to look is the courts, and so far, we've been winning 9 out of 10, maybe more, of the cases in the courts. So right now, I am ashamed of the fact that my party was taken out of contention by the American people on Election Day, and that we therefore have very limited tools. But I am proud of the fact that the judiciary, for the most part, has stood up and said, you will not do these unconstitutional things.
So there you go. Guys, I don't really know what to tell you about what is happening right now. I'm so deeply disturbed and I'm so deeply upset about what is happening right now. Francesca Fiorentini, speaking to Prim, we played this from Prim Thacker yesterday. Not this, we played something from him. Again, something that is long because I want you to understand the nuances of all of this. This may not be sexy or, you may find nobody's like jumping up and down, but again, this is more important than you even realize here. This is their conversation about Columbia University and Khalil. Watch.
If other universities have spoken out or saying they'll protect their students, because what is your fear? What does it look like in terms of not stopping with Mahmoud? Because as we saw, the State Department may use AI to comb students who seem to be so-called pro-Hamas, i.e. anti-genocide.
And Prem, before you jump in, I want to remind folks that some names have already been given by Canary Mission. And Prem, if you could talk about Canary Mission and how some other students are already targeted, and whether or not, according to Francesca, if the universities are doing anything to protect them.
Yeah, I think these questions honestly go hand in hand. It's in the same way we've seen this incredibly insane right-wing takeover of the already far-right Republican Party in such a way that they're just destroying half the government. We're seeing the same thing here, where on one hand you have these just vicious doxing groups, harassing groups, threatening groups that are just working day and night, libs of TikTok style, but specifically just to focus on anyone who says anything positive about a Palestinian. That's one side of it. Then you have the other side, which is this increasingly like radical, vicious government that's doing the same. And then when this comes together, you see the manifestation of this, which is on the broader scale, they're undermining, weakening, watering down, crippling our government and our ability for our government to serve its people, to do its job. And we can't even have universities, public or private, to even try to fill in the gap. The cutting of $400 million grant funding from Columbia is not just about Columbia. It's a warning shot such that every other school does not feel comfortable to say that they might have, in the same fashion they might have in 2017, we're going to stand up for our students. We're going to make sure that this government does not violate the Constitution. This is a place of learning. This is a place where democracy in its purest form can happen. You're not seeing that because of this way in which these threatening and attacking organizations and this threatening and attacking government is working hand in hand.
These conversations are important for you to hear because there are people who are speaking out against this at their own peril, as a matter of fact. There are people who are speaking out about this at their own peril because this is something that can get you canceled. This is something that people can even get hurt over. It can cause you peril in many different ways. We have a poll up right now that I want to share with you. And the poll is, do you think Mahmoud Khalil deserves to be deported? 6% say yes, 94% say no. Overwhelmingly, people are opposed to this sort of lack of due process. I want you to hear now Khalil Muhammad in his own words.
Born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Damascus in Syria. My family's history in Palestine actually goes back to as long as my grandparent could trace it. They lived in a very small village right next to Tiberias. Mostly they were farmers. My grandmother, she used to tell us that she had Jewish neighbors. They would share a piece of land where they would farm it. Tiberias was one of the first cities that the Zionists targeted in 1948 with ethnic cleansing. In April 1948, a month before the Nakba, the Zionist militias, they burned one of their villages. When they heard the news about it, they had to leave immediately. Some of the men went to fight. Big families, they had to go to Syria. My grandmother, she was pregnant at that time. She had to walk 40 miles. She gave birth on the way. When they arrived in the refugee camp, they thought it's just a matter of days until they would go back. They did not want to be killed because they heard about the horror stories across Tiberias. My dad was born in a tent. His family lived in that tent until like mid-70s when they upgraded to small structures. In the 90s, they finally kind of like had concrete buildings. To us, it was always a temporary home until we go back to Palestine.
And that is his story in his own words. Everyone does not have the kind of life that you and I understand here in America. People have different ideas and different political and religious persuasions. Not everybody grew up with the American perspective or even the Christian perspective. And while we may not agree with it, it doesn't mean that they don't hold those perspectives. That is what America is supposed to be about. Different perspectives. Not about terrorism, though. Don't get me wrong. Representative Seth Moulton on what Trump views as proper terrorism. Here it is.
Attacking Teslas or dealerships, going beyond vandalism, that could be an act of domestic terrorism. But I do want to ask about this as resistance. Is this what resistance should look like?
So Trump thinks that if you try to kill cops to overthrow the government and change an election, that's not domestic terrorism, but somehow having a protest in front of a Tesla dealership is. The bottom line with Trump is freedom and liberties belong to people who agree with him, and that's it. That's his view of America. That's not a view that people who believe in our Constitution share.
Congressman.
So then, just because you don't agree with someone, does that make you a terrorist? Even if you have not enacted or espoused terrorist things, if you haven't done it. Remember Alexei Navalny? Yes, Jillian B. I remember Alexei Navalny. No, I think that Donald Trump was at the White House today, and I think this is very revealing about who he thinks this country belongs to, that he does not believe in the Constitution. He does not believe in due process. He does not believe in backing anybody, the blue or anybody like that, except for the people who support him. Even those who support him, if you break the law and you support him, that is okay. Now, as far as I know, Mahmoud Khalil has not broken any law. But the folks on January 6th broke laws. Pardon. And this is how he feels about, this is what he said about Chuck Schumer, okay, who is a Jewish senator. Here he is.
We're going to blame the Democrats. And Schumer is a Palestinian, as far as I'm concerned. You know, he's become a Palestinian. He used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian. Okay.
This man is a dumb asshole. He's a troll. Chuck Schumer's a what else would you call someone who's call a Palestinian? What else would you call someone like that? That's like calling someone out their name, that, you know, like Ye did with me, calling me the C word. Where's the lie? Yeah, I said he is. Drunk with power. He believes that he can flout the Constitution and do what he wants. He doesn't realize he works for the American people. He is a king troll. He went on to even talk about other things that have nothing to do with Khalil, as after he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian, which is not. Is that supposed to be an insult to Chuck Schumer? Because of what I just said, should I be rounded up for saying that about the president? I'm sure they might come for me. Now, this is what he's saying about, he believes that everything is, he likes to exaggerate things in order to get people on his side. And, you know, it works for a lot, especially the people who are not so bright, the poorly educated, who he loves. Here he is talking about everything is transgender to him.
And they should not, and they're also demeaning women. But who would want these things? And everything's transgender. Everybody transgender. That's all you hear about. Now, that's why we won the election in record numbers. But very importantly, now it is what it is. The Democrats should get with us and come up with good tax policy.
Good tax policy is not tax cuts. For billionaires, for the wealthy people. That's not what it is. I played this morning, and I want to play it now. Okay, so this is some of the stuff that I want this morning, and that is Senator Chris Murphy speaking out in support of Khalil, because I think this is important. And also I keep playing this, but I think it's important for you to understand, especially the person in the chat, in the TikTok chat, who asked me about, why don't I ask some of the Jewish students? So give me the Pod Save America thing, John Lovitz. But this is Senator Chris Murphy.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university last year. You can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was racist before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But we cannot, because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value, maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow,
it could be you or me. And he is right. But Chris Murphy is getting really good at this. Let me say something, okay? Because I always say, let me apologize. I should not have called the president of the United States a dumb asshole. I should have just said he's a dumb ass. That was a little bit too far. He is a dumb ass. But the other thing, that was a little far. I apologize for that. See how that works? Not everybody can do that. He won't ever do that. But Chris Murphy is right. It's him today, and it could be you. Now, for the folks who are asking, what did you ask about the Jewish students? Of course, I'm thinking about the Jewish students on campus. Of course, I'm thinking about them. So let's hear from a Jewish person who understands the nuances of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and also being a Jewish person. He's not so far from college age. He's a pretty young man. John Lovitz, make sure you play from the very beginning, please.
Me to put on my Jew hat for a moment. This is an accident. I'm actually wearing a deli hat, so it is. I'm actually literally wearing a Jew hat today. Let's say that this person had a bunch of anti-Semitic comments. Protected. Anti-Semitism is protected speech. I don't like it. I don't like a lot of what I heard at some of these protests that I do think go from anti-Zionism into pure anti-Semitism on the regular. But like to see the Anti-Defamation League put out a comment with this sort of to be sure at the end about everyone deserving due process, but ultimately coming down on the side of what the Trump administration is doing is so fucking stupid. The idea that like be a kind of patron to what Trump's doing, be like a good Jew who supports the regime, that'll protect us in the end. The thing that like protects Jewish people from anti-Semitism is the culture of freedom, a legal order that protects freedom, including the freedom of green card holders, not just citizens, but non-citizens in this country. That protection is ultimately what makes Jews safe in America. The idea that going down a road in which people think it is defensible for the Trump administration to come knocking on somebody's door who has not been accused of a crime to revoke their immigration status for speech and protest you don't like, it's obviously morally reprehensible, but it is so fucking stupid in the long term. That makes every Jewish person in America less safe. Think about the road we're going on. It's like there are posters in the schools. They say, first they came for the socialists. Yep. What do they think comes after that? And then they were cool? Like, it's so stupid. It's so obvious. And like, there's all these people that have pretended to care about history and to learn from history and think about history. And it's happening right in front of our faces. And they're too either cynical or naive to realize that they're the people not doing the right thing in the moment when they're supposed to.
Thank you very much. Did you guys understand that everything has nuance? Everything, there's a nuance to everything, and you can be Jewish and understand that. I don't agree with them, but I think he has a right to due process and a right to freedom of speech. Let's bring in, I want to bring in Dave Ehrenberg. He is an American politician, serves as a state attorney of Palm Beach County, Florida, 2013 to 2025. Also, we call him the Florida lawman.
Thanks, man. It's great to be back with you, Don. Yeah.
Good to be back.
Lemon law.
Yes, lemon law. This is real. This case is really bothering me. It's got me down. It's really thrown me off kilter. What's happening here?
Well, here's the thing. What this guy is in jeopardy of being deported for is that he may have been espousing support for a terrorist organization. And under the law, it says that, according to law, I'm going to read it for you here. The Immigration Nationality Act, it says that you're allowed to deport any alien who endorses or espouses terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. Now, it is a pretty broad sentence there, but does the administration have legitimate grounds to win this in the courts that he would be deported? Yes. And I know people saying, well, First Amendment rights. Yeah. But people on green cards don't have the same exact First Amendment rights as
Dave. I agree with you on that. But where's the evidence? Why haven't they charged him with anything? Where is the evidence that he has ties to Hamas,
right,
or a terrorist organization?
Well, first off, you don't have to have a crime to be deported, right? So the fact that he's not charged with a crime does not matter here. It matters what he does, and includes what he says. So when people say First Amendment, look at his actions, not his words. Well, you can look at his words as well. And Don, that's where I keep an open mind, because I want to see exactly what he did and said. I know that for Jewish students at Columbia who are threatened and hassled and couldn't go to school because of guys like this, they probably are breathing a sigh of relief that he's no longer around to terrorize them. But whether that's deportable or not, I think that's for a judge. And that's where he does have due process rights. He has not been deported. He's going to go see a judge, and this will be settled in the courts.
Okay, so those due process rights, that means they can arrest him and detain him before they decide on what they're even charging him with or what they want to deport him for? Can they just say, hey, I imagine if you're on a visa or whatever, they can just tell you to leave anytime for no reason or whatever. They can make up a reason, but he does not. Doesn't he have due process rights as someone who has a green card, as a permanent resident?
He does. But you don't have to be charged or convicted of a crime to be sent home based on the specific wording of the Immigration Nationality Act. Also, there's another provision that Marco Rubio is referring to as Secretary of State that does give the Secretary of State broad power to deport someone who is a threat to our national security. But you've got to have the goods. You've got to have evidence that he has expressed support for Hamas, or he's done something that exhibits support for Hamas. And so, or is part of a terrorist group. Now, I don't know all the details about it, but That's why this is not, as like your last speaker was very passionate about it. I get it. But this is not so cut and dry. This guy has done some really bad things, okay? He has been terrorizing Jewish students on campus. Whether or not that's deportable, well, let's see.
Well, I want to know, is there evidence that he has been terrorizing Jewish students? Is there evidence that he has ties to Hamas, or that he is a Hamas sympathizer? That's what I think everyone is asking. And so far, Marco Rubio or Tom Homan or no one has actually shown any evidence. That is what people are concerned about. And I've said here, if you show me some evidence that any of this is true, then I'll say, okay, fine. But if someone tries to detain me and they say, Don, we're coming to pick you up, and I would say, well, on what grounds are you picking me up? They don't have to show evidence on what grounds that they're picking me up and they're detaining me. It seems like that would just be a basic right of an American citizen, or even one who is here on a.
That's what, see, Don, that's the difference. He's not an American citizen. He's here on a green card, and he's subject to the rights and responsibilities of those on a green card. And if you espouse support for a terrorist organization or espouse views that are in line with Hamas, you could be deported for that. And just a matter of how aggressive the INS officials want to be. And this administration is getting very aggressive. And I don't know if he has ties to Hamas. But you ask.
Well, that's the thing you're saying. If you espouse views and you don't know, that's the whole point. It says he is a legal permanent resident and he has a green card. And so that's the thing. Where is the evidence that this has happened? If there is evidence that he did that, I would say, Dave, you're right, 100%. But where's the evidence? And the judge has stopped him from being deported. Where is that evidence? Why didn't they present that evidence? Why are they not presenting that evidence to the American people right now?
Well, they don't have to present it to the American people. They have to present it to a judge. And the judge is going to make that decision based on the evidence. So you're right that they have to come up with the goods. And as far as whether or not he has intimidated and threatened and terrorized Jewish students, which, by the way, that in itself is not necessarily deportable. That to me just shows that he's not a good guy. But I've spoken to several students from Columbia, and they have felt very intimidated on campus, where the encampments and their classes.
Dave, that's not Dave. I understand that, but that's not the point. And I have been on college campuses for protests here, and when I was a student, and I have been very uncomfortable on college campuses.
Right.
I would not want the people who made me uncomfortable on college campuses picked up and deported because I did not agree with them or because they blocked me from class. Now, if they threatened my being, okay, that's something else. But because someone blocked you from class, okay, yeah, you want to go to class, but that is not like it is a crime that is beyond the pale. It is something that a college student is doing. College students, I believe, should be given wide berth and to be allowed to push and to test the system. So I don't know if I agree with you about that. Now, the law is the law, and whatever the judge decides.
Right.
But I think that at this point, if you are going to pick someone up and you're going to detain them, then you need to tell them and you need to show the evidence. And it appears to me right now, there is no evidence. Otherwise, they would have showed the government and they would have said, hey, this is the evidence we have. And boom. Now, Marco Rubio is saying this is not about free speech. Tom Homan is saying this is about free speech. Somebody's lying somewhere, or someone doesn't have their story together, because if they had the goods, they would have presented it by now. The judge is saying, bring me some evidence.
Right.
And so something is not right in the detaining of this person. Shouldn't, before you detain someone, you have the evidence for what you're saying, and not just, well, he might be, and he could have done this, and maybe he's a sympathizer, and maybe he's not. Shouldn't it be like, he's a sympathizer on June such and such of 2024, he did this and said this at a rally, which is of concern to the students and the American people. On May whatever 2024, he blocked this student from going to class. He was leading a protest that stopped the students. I'm not seeing it, Dave. I'm sorry. I hate to disagree with you on this. I know the law is the law, but I hate to disagree with you.
Well, I don't know if we're totally disagreeing, Don, in that I'm waiting to see the evidence too. I'm not saying they don't have it, or they do have it, because they're going to have to present it to a judge to deport him. They can't deport him unless they have something specific. And
you're saying they don't have to have that evidence before they detain someone?
Well, yeah. Well, as immigration goes, there's very broad authority for the president, the Secretary of State. For example, the Immigration Naturalization Act actually says that the president can suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens who are deemed to be detrimental to the interests of the United States, and they can impose upon them any restrictions that the president may deem to be appropriate. So there is broad power. And with Marco Rubio is saying it's not about free speech, it's about this guy is a threat to our national security.
That is, you're giving me hypotheticals, and you're saying that if there's what is deemed to be detriment to the United States,
right? Well, but see that, and that's
how
where you have
is
the
it?
ability.
Hold on. How is that deemed to be detrimental to the United States when we thrive on free speech and people having dissenting opinions? That's part of the fabric of America that we espouse and that we love, because we want people who freedom of religion, people have different ideas about political parties. So how is that deemed to be detrimental to the United States? Because you are expressing a First Amendment right that American citizens express, that is expressed here in America.
If it's just his speech about his opposing a two-state solution, he wants the elimination of Israel, that's not going to be enough to deport him. What would be enough is if he endorsed October 7th and Hamas. If you endorse October 7th and say that it should happen again, then yes, then you should be deported.
100%. 100% I agree with you. But where's the evidence? That's what I'm asking you. Before, if someone came to pick up Dave Ehrenberg and detain you, what would you say to them? Why?
Well, I'm different because I'm a U.S. citizen. This guy is not a U.S. citizen.
I'm asking you, but wouldn't you say what? Why?
I would say, what are the charges? But that's different than if I'm on a green card where you can detain people because they're deemed to be a threat to the United States. Now, you have to come up with the goods. And that's why you have a judge and you're going to have hearings. So I don't think we're that far off, because
they're deemed to be a threat of the United States, Dave. What I'm trying to tell you is that where is the evidence of him deemed to be a threat of the United States? Why are we picking
the United States or someone who's espoused support for a terrorist organization? So if you go ahead and you say, let's have another October 7th, then that would be enough.
Okay, but I just said that to you. If you said on June whatever he said that he was in support of October 7th, but where is that?
Well, like I said, it's going to have to be proven to a court, or else he's not going to be deported. But the question is, should the United States government, do they have the power to do this? The answer is yes. And can they do it for this guy? Well, the devil's in the details.
Should they do it? Should they do it?
Should they do it? It depends on
Are
the
you
evidence.
okay with people just being picked up on just the suspicion of something with no evidence?
Oh, no evidence? If they had no evidence, then they wouldn't have picked him up. They picked him up because he was the leader of these infamous campus protests that Jewish students felt were threatening to them, and universally are seen as something that is not in line with American values. Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Dave, that's no evidence of that because you disagree with someone. There's no evidence that they are espousing terrorism or have links to terrorism.
Oh, well, again,
there's no evidence. Now, if he had said the things that you said, okay, great, but
that's what the hearing is for.
Send me a speech.
But that's what the hearing is for, and obviously, he's already seen a judge. He's got due process. So when you say he's being arrested, first of all, he's not being arrested. He's on a green card. He's on an immigration hold, and he could be deported because they have to show that he is someone who is a danger to the national security of the United States, or someone who's espousing support for terrorist organizations. So I assume that the time that they got him, they have enough evidence. And as far as whether we're going to see it, we're going to have to see it, or else he's going to stay in the country.
Okay, Dave, you've been doing this for a long time. Do you know of people that have been picked up without any evidence on the suspicion of something and there is no evidence that it's actually there? Has that ever happened? Because you said they must have the evidence, otherwise they would not have done it.
Yeah, of course they've got to have some evidence. They can't just do it based on the fact that he hates Israel, or even the fact that he posts anti-Semitic stuff on social media, which he does, but that's not enough to deport him. That's just enough for me to think he's a bad dude. So I'm the one saying that the government has broad powers to keep him and deport him, and then they have to provide evidence. So we're not that far off. I guess you would be a little less willing to use the government's powers to.
Well,
go
I'm
after
a little different because of my interactions, perhaps, with law enforcement. Because I know people and have been, people say this is suspicious when they have had no evidence. You are doing this, you are acting suspiciously as someone who has been racially profiled in a store, right, in a retail store, with no actual evidence of anything happening. People just sort of walking around and following me and then calling the police when I have a receipt in my pocket. So to say that someone is, because there is a suspicion of something, that someone automatically has the evidence, for me, honestly, as a Black person, that is bullshit. Because there is no, I have had the cops called on me for shoplifting, Dave, when I had a receipt in my pocket. There was no evidence except in someone's mind I was suspicious. And so I cannot believe that you are here as a member of, the courts and the law enforcement saying they must have evidence or otherwise they would not have done it. I'm sorry, that's hard for me to swallow. I don't get it. I want to know, when you arrest me or detain me, where is the evidence that I am guilty of what you are accusing me of? Otherwise, I don't feel, and perhaps I'm not within the law, that you have the right to detain me unless you have some hard evidence that you are going to show in court in a due process in a matter of time, where my family is not looking all over the world for me, and you are not telling me, and you don't feel obliged or obligated to tell my attorney or my 8-month pregnant wife where I am. That just seems un-American to me, unpatriotic, and not what we are about in this country. I could be wrong. And then I'm just saying, if they have the evidence, fine, then I will change it. But something is just not sitting right with this. And I don't understand why you're saying they have to have the goods because of the suspicion when they have not presented it so far. And that there's this whole big rigmarole going around. And I think that they would want to tamp that down.
Well, I hear you, Don. But my belief is this, is that if they're going to actually have a guy in custody and he's already seen a judge, and they cannot legally keep him in custody unless they have something that shows that he is providing support either through his words or his conduct to a terrorist organization or a terrorist cause, or is a jeopardy to the national security of the United States. And so I do think that unless they have that information, this guy is going to stay in the United States. But if you're asking me to cry tears for a guy who's openly anti-Semitic, I'm not going to do so. If he is,
I don't think anyone is, Dave. That's not the point. No one is doing that. If he is openly anti, well, it's like, but okay.
Well, it does. I got to say, Don, it does seem like there are a lot of people on my side of the aisle, the Democratic side of the aisle, who seem to care a lot more about a terrorist sympathizer than the actual hostages kept by a terrorist organization.
Dave, let me just tell you something. There are people in this country who hate Black people. There are people in this country who are members of the Ku Klux Klan. There are people in this country who are members of neo-Nazi. I don't think that anyone should be rounding them up because they are members and they espouse those views. Now, if they act upon those views and they do something harmful to me, that is a different story. But if we are rounding people up and arresting them because we don't agree with their opinions or with their views, there would be a whole lot of people in this country who would be arrested. I don't like anti-Semites. I am a member of a Black Jewish alliance. I understand the nuances of this, but I do not think they should be rounding people up for unpopular opinions and beliefs, because half of this country, if not more, would be in jail.
Well, it's not just an unpopular belief. It's someone who, first, is not a U.S. citizen. So he is liable to be deported. He doesn't have the same rights that you and I have because he's on a green card. And if he espouses views that are inimical to the United States, then yes, he can be detained and he can be deported.
Okay, I understand that. Do you think, though, let me ask you this, all right, because we're getting nowhere. Do you think if this had not become such a hullabaloo as my nun teacher from Barbados taught me, I think she was my 6th or 7th grade teacher, if it not been for this whole hullabaloo, do you think that Mahmoud Khalil would be gone and deported from this country? If the attorneys had not gotten involved and there wasn't such an uproar about it, would he just be gone and people would not know? Perhaps his wife wouldn't even know where he is?
No, because one thing we have learned in the opening days of the Trump administration is that the one guardrail against unlimited power of the executive branch is the judiciary. Congress has decided to give away all of its power, but the judiciary is a guardrail, and they are involved in this case. In fact, a judge has already prevented him from being deported already. So no, I don't think that would have happened. He's going to get due process, and he'll be able to make his case to a judge, as will the government, and then we'll see what happens. But I just don't think it's as much of a scandal as people on my side of the aisle think, that because he is not a U.S. citizen and he has said some very awful things that, to me, show support for Hamas and terrorism. And if that is indeed the case, then he'll be deported.
Okay. And so if we have, he's a permanent resident, so it doesn't matter. You're saying it doesn't matter. He still doesn't have, as a permanent resident, he doesn't have the same rights as.
That's correct. His green card. That's correct.
Okay. Okay. So then there are people who might say that the president is sympathizing with some, David Duke or that kind of thing. Do you?
Yes, that's First Amendment. Because first, he's a U.S. citizen, and he's not. If he was not a U.S. citizen and he said that Hamas is right, then I think, then he should be detained and have a hearing and determine whether he should be deported. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Because that's the law. That's whether you like it or not. That's the law. If you express support for a terrorist organization, that's the law. I mean,
I understand it, but I want to see the evidence of that support for a terrorist organization. And like you, if he indeed supports a terrorist organization, then whatever the law allows and provides for, that should
correct. Yeah. So we're not that different here, Don.
But before you pick me up in the middle of the night or whenever it was, or when they were returning home, shouldn't you have that evidence first, Dave? Regardless of if you agree with him, whether you think he's anti-Semitic or not, or whatever. Even as a person of color, I would want someone who is a member of MAGA, who I don't agree with this when it comes to insurrections, or who is a member of the KKK. I would not want that for them, because that is not what we do as Americans. Even though I may vehemently disagree with them, I would want them to have due process. I want them to have First Amendment rights, because when they take their First Amendment rights, they're going to take my First Amendment rights. When they take away their due process, they're going to take away my due process.
Now, I don't know what the government has or not. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media, which I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. So I don't even try to espouse the stuff that I've been reading about this guy in social media, because I don't know.
They didn't even know he had a green card. They didn't know that he had a green card.
That's true. When they first arrested him, they did not, and then they said, "Well, your green card's revoked." I mean, they took him in. So I don't know what they have, but I think it's important that at some point that we all see it, and the judge will demand it, because if they don't have it, he's not going anywhere.
The producer saying they were planning to pick him up to revoke his student visa. They didn't even know he had a green card. They had no plan. They just wanted to pick him up.
But then the question is, were they allowed to do that? And look, the judge has not released him. And that shows that they're able to do this under current law. Now, maybe you want to change the law. Maybe you don't like the law, and you should say we should not be able to do this under the law. But the law is the law. And if someone is suspected of supporting terrorist activities, or someone who is a danger to the national security of the United States, they can be deported. But they have to have it.
What do you think of Representative Jim Himes calling this arrest and detainment fascist? I don't know if you heard the soundbite. We played it before you were on.
No, I haven't heard his soundbite, but
do we have Representative Himes, some of it, if we can pick it up to where Representative Himes, I think this is on the Mehdi Hassan thing, when Mehdi asks him, is that the first question that he asks?
I believe so.
Okay, let's listen.
Green card, they say, well, that's revoked as well. They take him, detain him, disappear him. We don't know on what charges. The president comes out, posts a post saying he's pro-terrorist, anti-American, very McCarthyite phrase. Not sure there's a law against being anti-American. Says there will be more such arrests coming. You have legal immigrants in this country, not just undocumented immigrants, now living in fear. And we know that if you start with green card holders, there's no reason they won't continue to citizens.
New citizens, that's right.
Naturalized citizens, people we've been talking about. Is this what fascism looks like?
Yes, frankly. I mean, again, I'm not, I want to be careful about how I talk about this. Fascism is a lot of things, but this is an element of totalitarianism, of fascism. And it's completely un-American and McCarthyite. And so if we continue the conversation that we've been having, what do we do? And I think you'll find earlier today I put up a tweet about this. Lots of other members have spoken out, raising hell. We'll all be doing social media stuff to make this case, which is that there is no law against having an unpopular opinion. In fact, in this country, we used to cherish the standing that you had to articulate an unpopular opinion. So we'll be telling that case. Will we be passing a law in the House of Representatives? I'm sorry to say we will not.
Well, I've seen that 14 Democrats have signed a letter saying he should be immediately released.
Right.
Your name's not on that, but I assume you support the sentiment.
It will be.
You support the sentiment.
All right, that's enough. We get the point. So, look, how can we believe that they conducted a thorough investigation of Khalil if they didn't even know he had a permanent green card? And first of all, what did you think of what Representative Himes said?
Well, I respect Representative Himes, and he got his point across that he's clearly opposed to this, and I disagree that it's a sign of fascism. I think that is the law. The law is on the books, and if you don't like the law, change the law. But a big part is that this guy has been out there involved with this group that is seen as a terrorist supporting group. But again, you see a lot of stuff on social media about what he says and what he does. And until that's proven, he's entitled to remain here, but it's got to be proven. So I don't oppose the fact that they're going to have to go to a court and prove that this guy is exactly who the government says he is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think that they should at least have done that before they detained him, or they could say, look, there's a suspicion of this. I just think that investigation, all of that should have been done beforehand. And I think this got ahead of them. And now they're trying to come up with a problem for a solution, if you know what I mean. Like they're backtracking and trying to fix it. That's all I'm saying. Florida lawman, that was one of the most fiery things we've had. Well, we've disagreed before, but not like that.
It's I think a sign of strength, Don, that in lemon law, you can never predict exactly which side I'm going to be on these things, because
I didn't expect you to be on any side. I expected you to come here and tell us what the law is and what you thought about it. And then it is your right to be able to agree or disagree with me, and my right to be able to agree or disagree. And we may have unpopular opinions, but if I have sorry, someone's coming to get me. No.
I love the fact, Don, that you have on people who disagree with you. I think that's important. That's a sign of strength.
Yeah. Yes. I was just making a joke that I have an unpopular opinion about this, so they're at my door. They're going to take me away. I wouldn't want that for you. I wouldn't want it for me. I wouldn't want it for anybody. But thank you for that. Any final parting words before I chuck you out of here?
Hey, Don, I love the show, and I think it's great that you're doing so well out there. People do love you, and I hope you have me back. We can disagree on other
things. Of course, Dave. I just disagree with you on that. And it's our right as American citizens to do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming.
One last thing. Who definitely disagrees with you on this? A guy named Adam Platzner. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, is he? Well, Platz. I know Platz. I know why he disagrees, but I don't think that Platz would disagree with due process. I know,
but if you think I'm tough on this one, that Platz would be over the top. I'm sure, but I'll send him your best.
Tell Adam I said hello. All right, take care. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. So that was fiery. That was interesting, right? That was fiery and interesting, and I appreciate Dave Ehrenberg coming on. Look, I don't disagree. I don't like anyone who espouses anti-Semitism. I don't like anybody who espouses any sort of anti-Muslim or Islamophobic views. I don't like it. I don't like people who are bigots. I don't like homophobes. I don't like any of those things. But I don't think that just because they may think those things, if they don't act upon them in a way that is harmful physically to someone or jeopardizes someone, I don't think that people should be rounded up and put in jail or taken away from it. It just seems really odd for me, and I can't believe that people are actually supporting this. Now, the law may say one thing about, as he said, they have the right to do it, but just because you have the right to do something, does that mean you should do it? Oh, we got quiet in here. You guys, this is what you will not get in corporate media. So if you are still here, you're with us, you stuck with us through that, make sure you hit the thumbs up, make sure you hit the like, make sure you subscribe, and become a member, because that's what keeps us going, and that's what keeps us having these fantastic open conversations live, where we don't restrict it, is by you being a supporter of us. Let's see, before I move on, I just want to talk about a couple of things that I want to get on, because we need to talk about the things that are happening with Canada. Now, as you guys may or may not know, what's his name? Howard Lutnick, who is, what is he? I forget, the economy, whatever he is, called the Premier of Ontario, and to talk to him, and I guess to ask him to back down on these things and let's get to the negotiating table. And then the guy said, okay, and then he invited him to Washington, D.C. And so now Donald Trump and those guys are trying to spin it as a win. But Lutnick reached out to the premier so that they wouldn't cut off the electricity, or they would not put a 25% levy on top of the electricity bill that they're already giving to 3 states, 1.5 million U.S. citizens in Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. Okay, so 1,500 folks there. So anyway, this is Trump, what he's talking about, the tariffs in Canada, etc. Here it is.
It's going to be a tough battle. In my opinion, not going to be tough. Just like when Ontario charged us, everybody said, oh, they just charged. I said, this will be won in 1 hour. And they announced what we were going to do, and they withdrew their little threat. And what they don't say in Canada is that 270%, have you ever heard that? We have tariffs on dairy products from Canada of 270%, going up to 400%. You never hear that. Canada's absolutely one of the worst. And we, when I say worst in terms of charging tariffs. Their dairy products, they charge our farmers 240, 250, 270, and 400%. Okay? Think of that for dairy product. And we charge them like peanuts. You know why? Because we've been improperly run for so many years. I had that all settled in my first term. But then, of course, Biden, he let everything go to hell.
Okay, again, where's the evidence of that? And Biden let everything go to hell. But man, oh man, my retirement, and I'm lucky enough to have it, knock wood, certainly wasn't doing the way it's doing now under Donald Trump. I'm just saying. Here he is again talking about, he says, he's mentioning the economy, right? And the stock market. When there is the evidence, when the evidence is pointing to exactly the opposite of what he's saying. He said the economy would have tanked if he had lost the election.
So we've had a lot of bad trade policies, and yet we're doing very well right now. But we're doing well because I won the election. If I didn't win the election, you would have had a very bad period. I think a lot of the stock market going down was because of a really bad 4 years that we had. When you look at inflation and all of the other problems that were.
If that were true, why didn't the stock market go down? Why was it going up under Joe Biden? And now all of a sudden it's going down. I'm just saying, keep going.
I mean, wars and inflation and so many other problems. But we're
Okay, so that's that. And now one more thing before we get out of here. His press secretary, I know it's tough. Do you guys really? I'm sorry. Should I even play this? Let's see. If it starts to get annoying, I'll stop. But sometimes I just can't take it. Caroline Levitt on whether Trump should address the economy. Watch.
Ask you one follow-up on this, because the American Automotive Policy Council has put out a statement sort of pushing back on this narrative. They said revoking the exemption for Canada and Mexico and extending tariffs to auto parts with steel and aluminum will add significant costs for automakers, suppliers, and consumers. Steel and aluminum tariffs obviously could have big impacts. Is it time for the president to do an Oval Office address maybe and try to explain to people that it might be bad for a little while, but it is in fact worth it?
I think the president has been incredibly clear, Jackie, on where he stands and what he envisions for the future of America. He wants to restore this great country as the manufacturing superpower of the world. And we have the ability to do it because we have the best market and we have the best workers and we have plenty of resources
Okay.
here at
Sorry,
home.
I'm
What
sorry.
we
Can we stop? I'm sorry. I can't listen to that anymore. Y'all know what I mean, right? I'm just, I hate to hear the talking points and it becomes, but by the way, it reminds me, what was it, Suzanne, what was the young lady we had on? It was just looking at that. It reminded me of, oh God, what was her name? Let's see.
Suzanne Lambert.
Suzanne Lambert and Republican makeup. As I was watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, Suzanne Lambert is right on. And it was so stark. Just play the beginning of it. I was just like, wow. She actually came on and did a demonstration for us on Republican makeup, and she made herself look just like this. It was crazy. So look back in our, over our channel and check it out, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm
going to put the link in the chat for everyone. So
yeah, put the link in the chat and you can look at it. So this is something other than just politics. It's sort of interesting and fun. I'm so glad. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I have a big heart, and I think that even people I disagree with, I think they should be allowed to say what they want. I think that there should be due process in this country for people, especially for students. They should be given a leeway. I don't like people who are anti-Semitic. Quite frankly, I don't like people who are anti-anything, as I've been saying. And it having those views doesn't necessarily mean for me that you should be rounded up and deported. But I think it's problematic as it relates to freedom of speech and due process in this country. I just really do. And Peter, I know that you and I have been talking about it. We've been writing about it. We've been wanting to really sort of elevate this story. And because some people are afraid of this story. Let me just be honest with you guys and Peter. I have spoken to people at main networks, as they call it, the mainstream media. And they are concerned about even talking about this story because they don't want to be canceled or fired or reprimanded because they may hold a view about freedoms that people should have in this country to agree or disagree in First Amendment. But they're just really concerned. And so they're saying, I'm not touching that topic. We won't do it on this program. I've heard that from several people. Peter, what do you say about that?
Well, it's because it's messy, Don. It's a topic that is just a enigma wrapped in a riddle inside a mystery, to absolutely butcher an expression. But it's very messy, and I experienced trying to write about a lot of stories like this while I was at MSNBC as the war in Gaza was at its peak. And it's really complicated because obviously we have sympathy and we have compassion for all involved. And so often, particularly in mainstream media, you're expected to just take a side and not hear out other voices. I want to make very clear from the start what I'm about to say. I have great respect for Dave Ehrenberg. I think he's a brilliant legal mind. He's a great friend of the show, and he's always provided us with good insight. There's one thing alone that I took slight issue with when he was on, and it's when he talked about how we should just assume that the federal government has the evidence against Mahmoud Khalil.
You saw that's what I took issue with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, I sort of understand Dave's perhaps bias there because he's worked within the confines of the law. That has been his career. And I'm sure, has only ever worked in good faith in protecting people and carrying out the law. What concerns me about this particular case, and I mentioned this to you in the chat, and I know that you questioned Dave about it. I don't think he quite was able to give an answer, is he again assumed that the feds had carried out a thorough investigation and they had the goods about Khalil, that they had evidence that he had said or done something that clearly constitutes support for a terrorist organization. And in another hypothetical situation, I might be inclined to agree with him. However, in this case, we know that the feds have bungled this from the beginning. ICE agents showed up on Columbia's campus. They went into his building, they showed up at his door, and they planned to detain him based on revoking his student visa.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even know that he was a legal permanent green card resident. The thorough investigation, if you've really looked into this guy, if you have crossed your T's and dotted your I's and know everything this guy has done over the past year, you would know that he's a permanent U.S. resident. And that is what gives me grave concern about the seriousness of this investigation. And if I could just say one more thing, Don, I know we touched on this during the show. The Trump administration cannot even agree on whether or not this is a matter of free speech. You've got Marco Rubio saying it's not, and you've got Tom Homan saying it is. I do not trust these folks as far as I could throw them. And looking at Tom Homan, I don't think I could throw him very far.
Or Marco Rubio for that. He's short, but
Little Marco I could toss.
He's a little stout. He's like a fire hydrant, that little Marco guy. I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. But when the thing that you really got me, I think if you saw me, is when he said, "Oh, they must have the goods." I'm like, wait, what? They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have the goods. Okay, but don't you think if they, as I said, if they had the goods, they would have presented it already, and it would be case closed. This guy did this, and this, and therefore he should be deported. Now they're in a courtroom, and the judge is saying, basically, show me some evidence. Bring me some evidence. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Okay, guys. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for, Peter has been, bringing us these stories, and he makes me aware of these stories, and I really appreciate it. Okay. So tell me, hold on. Someone is saying me. How, where? Okay. There is I'm getting some of the things, breaking news, but we don't have to follow it right now. Okay, so here's the thing, guys. As I have been saying, this is why you like us. Should be why you love us. I mean, did you guys hear that conversation? Do you think you're going to get that anywhere else? We did not book Dave Ehrenberg to come on the show and fight. Okay? We did not book him to come on. That was organic. That was an organic disagreement, which that is the way it should be. It did not insult your intelligence. We talked about the law. I said, okay, I understand the law may be different, but here's where I come down on this, and here's where you come down on this. And I thought it was a productive conversation. I don't think it insulted your intelligence. Probably could have been, maybe 2 or 3 minutes shorter. But honest, organic conversations don't have time limits on it. That's what I used to hate when I'd have to go to a commercial break and we were right in the middle of something juicy. We got to go. We got to pay the sponsor. We got to pay the bills. We got to go to the commercial break. And you're like, it was just getting good. So anyways, thank you all. Make sure you hit the like button, please. Let me put on the thing. I haven't even hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And we welcome. Thank you, Paulette Henry, for becoming a member. Thank you, Don from Canada. Paulette Henry says, and all of the new members here to the Don Lemon Show. Sharita Turner, welcome to the Lemon Nation. Sabine Sanders, welcome. Dr. Erica Steele, welcome to the Lemon Nation. Kristen Hammond, welcome to the Lemon Nation. LL, welcome to the Lemon Nation. Tell me what you guys thought of this conversation and this show. I want to know. Novelette, welcome. Court, welcome. Felicia, welcomes. Hi, Felicia. Rose, welcome. T Brooklyn 13, what's up? Welcome. Thank you all. I appreciate all the new members, all the new subscribers. The subscriptions are free. You can subscribe. But if you want to become a member, it is very reasonable. I've looked at some other folks' memberships. And I was like, wait a minute, I need to charge more. I'm just saying. That was great. Oh, you guys liked it. Enjoyed it. Welcome new members. Do not respect BS. Thank you. Good show, Don. What did you guys think? Great show, Don. Thank you, Don. Loved the pushback, says City Cat. Oh, this is all great. Thank you. It was a good back and forth, says John McCann. It was very good. It was very good and very concerning, says Angela Johnson. Thank you. Grape Swisher, welcome to the Elimination. Good show, says Icy Holly. And corporate, let's see what this is. And corporate in your ear, Don smiling. Nope, no corporate in my ear. Great, really good discussion, according to Takaya. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. Dave trusts in the law because he has the complexion of protection. I don't look, he's a lawman. So, you know, I don't want to disrespect someone. Dave's not here to defend himself.
I got the same complexion too, for the record.
Yeah. You did great navigating that conversation, says Earth Flow and Power. Earth Flow and Power, you need to become, oh, you are a member. Okay, thank you very much for that. So great show, says Miriam. I appreciate all of you. Hi, Felicia, says Mighty. Okay, guys, well, I've had you for a long time. That was great and fiery. So we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, they're going to be redirected from here, right, Nikki?
Yes, they will.
We're going to talk about something that I believe that is really egregious. I'm just going to tell you. We've talked a little bit about it, but I think this is important. So you hear Donald Trump, and you've heard Elon Musk talk about this this genocide, or as Elon Musk calls it, a slow white genocide in South Africa. Well, lately, Donald Trump is offering a fast pass citizenship for South African farmers, which really means Afrikaners. Does it really mean the black farmers there that have been tilling this land for decades? No, it means that. And so why is that? And considering the plight of black farmers in this country, I'm wondering where the empathy and the sympathy and the fast track and all of that is for them. They are as well. They are worried that some of these South African farmers are going to end up with land that is theirs, was theirs, should be theirs, that has been taken away from them, whether it's for financial reasons or just stolen. It is a fascinating thing that we really need to be cognizant of, and we really need to pay attention to it. So make sure you tune in for that at 8. If you're here, it'll redirect you and get a notification for that. And go check out our Republican makeup thing too as well. Okay? So as I always say, thank you for supporting us, and turn the TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support.